Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, it's been a while. England have just won the Euros. Football's come home. So what better moment to bring back the Villa Filler podcast, mate? How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Yeah. Amazing, wasn't it, mate? Amazing. Great final. It makes you realise, man, that you look at the Villa ladies, obviously shout out Hannah Hampton.
Yeah.
She'll have herself a medal, which is massive for her, such a young keeper to be involved with that, obviously. She obviously wasn't, unfortunately, didn't get too many minutes or anything like that. But, you sense that at her age, there's a future down the line for her with the Lionesses, that number one spot could eventually be hers. So obviously there is a Villa connection, and then obviously there's plenty more ex-Villains in that squad. No less than, so it's wonderful to see Jill Scott still at the forefront of it, or the way they let Jill Scott and Ellen White lift the trophy second was some beautiful stuff, mate. And obviously Jill Scott played for the Villa last season, was it? Last season she was at the Villa. So yeah, just amazing, mate. Just amazing.
It was, honestly. It's a big moment, and hopefully you guys all watched and enjoyed, and we can finally say football's come home.
Yes.
But this podcast is not about the Women's Euros, but we got to give them a shout out anyway, because what a day. Pre-season is all but done, Dan. Rennes has happened. Australia's been done. And I know we've kind of briefly spoke about pre-season, but I feel like this, and there was a game against Fulham the day before. It's probably important to talk about, because it looks like we're starting to get a clearer picture, aren't we, Dan, on how Aston Villa could potentially look, on how certain things are going. I mean, I know, again, I don't want to spend a third podcast in a row talking about Freddie G, but Ashley Priest said that him and Traore have been banished, the words, to the under-23s, which I think is very, very disrespectful. However, it's happened. And yeah, I mean, obviously we beat Rennes. We'll get into that, mate. But I just want to, we will talk about it. I just wanted to know what you thought about that, mate, because I think we've said from the start, mate, since Steven Gerrard come in, we feared that Bertie Traore's days at the club are somewhat numbered, because he just doesn't cover enough ground, and he's a bit of a luxury player, when you get him on his day. And it's a shame how this could potentially end for him and Fred, because I don't know, for me, mate, something don't really sit right with sending first teamers to go and train within the 23s. That sends, to me, a completely. I mean, what does it say to the young lads that they're having to train with them? It's not really promoting a positive message, is it?
That's what I mean. Like, obviously, we don't. Someone made a good point the other day. It was like, obviously, we all see Freddie G through, well, I suppose, claret tinted specs, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
But we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and we said that for a long time with Sanson, and it sort of feels like that with Traore, and obviously it felt a bit like that with Engels as well, didn't it? Towards the end, like there was sort of rumours that there'd been a tiff and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden he was just phased out into nothingness. And I don't know if it was him and memory serves it, I think him and JT came to butts or something like that, or something had happened. I think JT's actually spoken about it previously in a podcast or something about that. He'd obviously mentioned Engels sort of anonymously, but Villa fans sort of put two and two together, and it sort of added up. Obviously, we don't know what's going on. Obviously, we can only sort of focus on what's going on. I can't imagine there's been anything going on the training ground or anything like that. Like, the squad seems to be in a generally good place, but yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, it's one thing them not being in his plans, and look, like Traore, as much as I love him, I think I'm the only Villa fan to have him on the back of a kit.
Hey, he's right there.
Oh, there you go.
Right
yes, of course. Blocks by the one ear of your mic, mate. But it's one of them where shame, and for Fred the same. I think Traore was just off cult favourite level, maybe. Like some of the goals that he scored, I think we'll look back in a few years and go, bloody hell, like you could make a bloody good YouTube compilation out of Bertrand Traore, let me tell you that.
You could, yeah.
But as much as I love him, I'll be the first to admit that he did blow hot and cold, and that's why, unfortunately, he will be an unsuccess story rather than a success story at Villa. And obviously, Freddie G never really got a fair crack of the whip, but you made a good point, mate, in that obviously it's Kane Kessler's really good, and I think he'll take that rotation spot, hopefully, which would have been Gilbert's. And as for Traore, I think, he does feel a bit of an outsider now, and the squad did towards the end of last season. And so be nice to go and see him get a good move and go and ball out somewhere.
Yeah, I think he probably suits football on the continent a bit better than England. It's a shame it didn't work out, mate, because, you guys will know we're big Traore fans. And yeah, I don't know. There's something that's bothered me. There was a comment that insinuated, I can't remember who it was, and I'm not pulling anyone up, or I'm not putting anyone on blast or whatever, but the sentiment behind the comment didn't really sit right with me, and that Villa have to be brutal, Villa have to be cutthroat, like there's no time for sentimentality, and that essentially we can't have this sort of, we can't form these loving relationships with these players. But sort of reading between the lines on that, it's all well and good for us to love Emi Martinez and that while he's playing, but we can't love or not even love, but feel sorry for someone like Gilbert, who we've both acknowledged he's fairly crap. Let's be honest. But I feel like I feel responsible, because how many players then have come to Villa and just absolutely shut the bed? How many? And their career has gone to nothing. They've made the money, and maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm in the minority on this, mate. But I do somewhat care about the players on a personal level as well. Just how they're feeling, because you want these people to want to play for your football club, right?
Yeah, and I think especially when they're involved in quite memorable things. Obviously, Gilbert was a part of that squad that kept us in the Premier League and played a lot of games that season.
Trez is a perfect example, mate.
Yes,
I wish him
exactly.
well. He's awful, but I'm so glad he's got his moves, and I will always remember the goals he scored, because he kept us in the bed.
100%. It's the same thing, mate. It's the same thing. And Fred was a part of that squad, and Traore was a part of that squad that performed really well in very difficult circumstances in lockdown. And he personally had a very good season. I felt the best Villa season we've seen in a long time. Unfortunately, it was the bloody lockdown one where we couldn't go and see it. But we played some really good football, had some amazing results. He personally had some, and I was thinking he obviously scored in the Chelsea game, which was the first game back with fans. It was like half capacity or whatever it was, third capacity.
Screamer as well.
We beat Chelsea at home, and that'll be a really iconic. Like that's a really in the future that game will be looked on as like quite a historic event. Really, that first game back after coronavirus, beating Chelsea, who obviously went on to be European champions, and he scored in that game as well. So he's got a little bit of Villa history attached to his name as well. And I think he, it was nice, mate. It's nice, but I hope it's not true. It's obviously it's not concrete, is it? Obviously,
no.
Priest is normally pretty good value and everything like that. He's not as nailed on as others, but he's usually pretty good at that sort of stuff. And he's been following the Villa really closely this pre-season. Let's hope it's not the case. But if it is, I mean, you can only wish him well. Yeah, no, for sure. But mate, final pre-season game, Ren looked really good. Everybody who went looks like everybody had a blast. A 2-1 win after going 1-0 down. Again, to be honest, guys, we've done this podcast to basically just gloat about Leon Bailey again, because he scored again. It was a nice goal. He scuffs it, but it still goes in. It lobs the keeper. Really nice finish. Build up in that goal was really good. I think overall Villa didn't look too great in the game, to be honest, Dan. I think it's fair to say, but again, I'm not too worried. I'll worry if after sort of 5 or 6 games things are still looking the same. There was some nice build-up play involved in that goal. And Leon, again, this is massive for him. And I just feel so vindicated. And I know it's only pre-season, but we were saying for the longest time, mate, just give this guy a pre-season, give him time to build up minutes, fitness. How many times did he rush back from injury last season? He's back, he's scoring goals. And I think it's given Gerrard a bit of a headache as to what to do, because I think he knows deep down in his heart of hearts that if Villa are to score goals, then
more than likely need 2 strikers on the pitch, but then you can't accommodate for Coutinho, who is always a certified starter under Gerrard, and getting Bailey and Buendia in is something that he just hasn't seemed too keen on. So as buzzing as I am for Leon, I think this is presenting more issues than it is solutions, even though it seems straightforward. Just play one up front.
Yeah, I mean, Ings taking the number 9 that feels pretty big.
Yeah,
that does feel pretty big to me. I like that statement from him. I think we have to expect better from both of our strikers this season. I saw you making some good tweets this morning, mate, about how there are a lack of number 9s that you could come in and say definitely 100% they are an upgrade on what we currently have. It's not a striker's market at the moment, especially if you look at someone within the profile of you want someone that's young, resale value, prefer Prem experience maybe, and stuff like that. Like every time you add a few caveats to it, the list just gets shorter and shorter, and all of a sudden you're shopping at like an elite level, whereby you're going to struggle to get involved with some of Europe's top clubs. I think, yeah, but I think with that said, if we are going to give these boys the season, and I think with every day that goes by, that looks more and more likely. I think we have to expect better from them. I think they will expect better from themselves as well. I think hopefully I think the game showed us that. I felt like the Man United game, to be honest with you, showed us that 2 up front doesn't really work with these boys. And I think the one thing that we need to do is establish a pecking order, if that's going to be the case. I don't think necessarily the sort of, if one doesn't score, the other one comes in for one game. If they don't score, the other one's in for one game. Do you know what I mean? I don't really feel... Yeah, I feel like if we're going to really give this a good crack this season with Ings and Watkins, we need to say, right, Danny, or I mean, quite literally, you are the number 9 this season. You're going to get the season. Or Ali, you're the more proven at the club. You're going to get the best run. And it's like if they don't score, don't score for 2 or 3 games, we're going to stick with it, and we're going to try and get it working. Because I just worry that we got into a habit last season of just swapping and switching constantly between the two based on how they played in a game. And like, whilst it feels very appealing to do, I don't think you build up a good run and you don't bring the connection with teammates. And obviously they're 2 very different strikers, so it completely changes the way that we play. I feel like for the benefit of the team, we need to really nail our colours to the mast and go with, right, you're the main guy this season.
Yeah, I think I'm in a minority that thinks Danny Ings can be a solo striker. I know a lot of people disagree, and it's not a very popular opinion. I just don't think he's had the correct amount, or not even the correct, just a fair amount of time to actually have a go at that by himself. Especially when you've got, I'm sorry, I will die on the hill that when you've got Buendia and Coutinho in a team, sliding in balls in between, splitting centre halves, playing these balls that we know that they can play, that Danny Ings won't succeed. I'm not having that. I'm absolutely not having that. But either or, like we can't scoff at these 2 strikers. We do have 2 of the league's better strikers, especially when you look outside the top 6. And I know when we had Aaron on like a month ago, Aaron, he really wanted Gabby Jesus. That's a massive statement of intent if you get him, and it's something that I back as well. But the fact that he's gone to Arsenal and he's having the pre-season he's having, and he's been absolutely wonderful. He will genuinely be one of the signings of the summer. He's going to absolutely tear it up at Arsenal. But that's the level that they're operating at, and it shows how far away we are. We can't compete in that sort of market. It's only 3 months ago we were talking about links to Darwin Núñez, like as if it could happen. Only, again, months after that there were Brighton links and there were Southampton links for Núñez, and then all of a sudden he's gone to Liverpool. Like, it's such a difficult market to operate in, and I don't think people truly understand that. I think
one thing that sums it up well is, like, just to throw it back to you, mate, is that obviously we've seen like Armando Broja recently linked to like Real Madrid. And it's like they've come so far down that food chain of strikers. It's now apparently they're like inquiring about this guy from West Ham. And it's like that's how difficult it's been at the moment for clubs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They're so difficult to find. And it is a buyer's market, but the big clubs will always benefit from that. That's just how it works. It's frustrating. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm innocent from all of the Ollie Watkins slander, because you listen to any podcast from last season, and I'm criticising the man's finishing ability, but I feel like we all need a sort of not a reality check, because that kind of makes it seem a bit rude, but I think we need to realise that we've actually got two fantastic strikers at the club that most, if not all, other sort of 14 teams in the Premier League would die for. City were linked with Ings, Tottenham were linked with Ings. His name had been bandied about, and sure, he was never going to be City's main number 9. Maybe Spurs if Harry Kane went, but obviously that whole chain of events with that. But I think it's interesting, mate. And how many strikers have we spoke about on this podcast, mate? And it's just there's nothing that's guaranteed, and that's the thing. I think Scamacca's a really good buy for West Ham. I really do, but again, Villa fans don't want to take the punt on the unproven striker and go in for like a Jonathan David again, who's another one. There's no guarantees. There's absolutely zero guarantees, and at least we know with Ollie Watkins, he's going to get 13 a season because he's done it. He's done it now. And the way I'm looking at this, at least, mate, and I think you share the same sentiment. It's not very often that players actually come up from the EFL and are actually able to make that jump to the Premier League. It is quite rare. It's quite difficult. And we've seen players hold their own for like a season, but then generally, you look at Sheffield United. I think you'll see Leeds now. There's a few in that squad who are still there from the Championship days who are going to really struggle this season. Teams just go straight back down. It's just what happens. And there's very few players that actually have the capability of stepping up from that level. But we've seen constant progression with Ollie. We've seen him score goals. He's hit double figures both seasons. And this is his third full season he's coming into. And if I'm being, I don't want to say realistic, but third full season, mate, if he's playing solo number 9 by himself, running the channels, none of this partnership nonsense, 20 goals is what I want, and is what I think he can, if he's being as serious as we're seeing with this finishing coach and all this kind of nonsense that has been fed to us over the summer, that he has the same goal as me. It's 20.
Yeah, I think we need both of them to combine for us, like in all competitions. Like we need those boys to be combining for at least sort of like realistically, you need both of them to hit double figures as a benchmark, really, as a real bottom line. And I think that we need to see them combining for 25, 30 goals this season in all competitions, because a lot of it has been spoken about a cover in this season as well, which seems very important. But as I said, mate, like this all comes down to. Who plays against Bournemouth will be very telling. That's very telling. Yeah. And sort of where we're going to put our mouth this summer, because the striker that's had the best season at the club is Cameron Archer. Like in terms of the best pre-season, he's outperformed both of those boys, which is like, and I'm not saying throw Cameron Archer straight into the deep end start against Bournemouth, but I'm just saying that like that's something to bear in mind. We definitely spoke about how important preseason was going to be for a lot of players and everything like that. And Cameron Archer really grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. And like, he's more ready than, I'll admit it, when we did that episode about whether he should go back out on loan or not. He's more ready than I perhaps realised, to be honest with you. He's really, I don't want to say surprised me, because we knew he could score goals, but I think how comfortable he looks is really what surprised me. He seems to play at the top of his game. Like a few like younger lads can sometimes come into the team, sort of play within themselves a little bit, play itself. They sort of look like kids coming into the first team, but Cameron Archer just plays like himself, and he seems to do that wherever he goes. And that's a really exciting trait to have for a striker, especially when we're talking about two strikers ahead of him that like inherently haven't felt like they really fit over the last season. And so that's really interesting. I think we will see a lot of minutes for Cameron Archer. And if these boys aren't firing, I don't think we'll be shy to turn to someone like Cam.
Well, I hope so, mate, because again, if there's been all this Carney discourse and all that, and all about the youngsters. I mean, Feeney came on doing Cruyff turns in his own box, and Feeney looks like a fantastic prospect as well. But if we kind of have to put our money where our mouth is in terms of giving these young lads opportunities when they come up. And I'm not saying that Josh Feeney again, starts against Bournemouth or whatever, but especially when we've gone out and bought Diego Carlos, who has been a beast in pre-season. But I think with cup games and with, if Villa are in a winning position and there's opportunities for Cam and there's opportunities for Tim. I was going to say Jaden, but he's got to move to Cardiff. So, I mean, that's brilliant news as well. He's going to be playing Championship football. So hopefully, following that same trajectory as Cam is. But we have to sort of honour that, especially after how public this has been with Carney, and just kind of go, well, if you're good enough, you'll get the opportunities. And I do think that is the case, mate. And because, we see it in pre-season all the time. We've seen it before, haven't we? Like Chris N featured a lot last pre-season, then kind of just went completely missing, which is quite concerning when you consider the left-back issues that we've had. But again, he's another one he's been fairly active this pre-season as well. But yeah, I think overall pre-season's been good, and there's no complaints from me. There's just a few questions that have been raised. We've not obviously done an episode since they announced the captaincy decision, mate, and I think the dust settled on that one. So I don't really want to. I don't want to be sort of treading over too many, old arguments and discussions that may happen in the comments. I'm really happy for Guinea. I really am. But I think, I don't know. I don't think I genuinely have an opinion on it. I'm just left feeling a bit apathetic's not the word, but I'm just a bit numb towards this situation. I don't fully understand the logic behind it, and I'm hoping it will become clearer. But I think one thing that, especially when you hear what Gerard's saying, he's like, yeah, McGinn's my captain. But that don't mean he's guaranteed to play. Well, why is he the captain then? It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not saying that the captain should play, but surely the captain is somebody who is ever present, not because they're the captain, but because they're good enough and they're a leader and all of these things. And I'm not an advocate for Emmy to be captain either. Goalkeepers should not be captains. I know you're going to disagree with me, Dan, but that's not. That cannot happen. You can't. They're away from everything. That can't be a thing. He's a leader, and that's fine. But
I think, I do. To be honest with you, mate, I don't really see the point in captains anymore. Really,
it's quite outdated.
In the. You look back 20 years and a captain is still a really big deal. And it still is, like the privilege of wearing an armband is carried over, but the actual role that they hold within the squad has been diminished. And you increasingly see more and more of they'd call them leadership groups within clubs. Like Arsenal do a lot of it, whereby the armband moves around sort of 2 or 3 times and there's sort of 5 or 6 players within a squad that are nominated to be part of a leadership group, and they are the collective captain. And it's nowadays, it just doesn't feel like a role that genuinely, Martin Odegaard is captain of Arsenal this season, right? That exactly. Tells you all. That's what I mean. So that if you look back 20 years, it's Vieira, and now they've moved to Martin Odegaard, and in that time, Aubameyang was captain, Lacazette was captain, Mesut Ozil was captain for a bit.
Frauds.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's completely changed meaning, and so to be honest with you, I don't think it's necessarily as big a debate as it is. Leading the boys out and everything like that is an honor, but I just think it's one of those now where it's given as a tool to inspire players and to bring the best out of them. I think that's what Arsenal were trying with the likes of Ozil and stuff like that, whereby they hope that it would raise his game, and I sort of get that approach, and maybe there is something like that in an armband nowadays. But yeah, I don't think it's as big a deal as perhaps it's made out to be anymore, if we're being sort of hypercritical. But yeah, you're right, mate. I'm happy for Guinea. Very happy for him. He's a great guy to have at the club. Clearly sets a big impact on the squad. I think captains should maintain a very solid standard, and I think McGinn does that generally. I think, Tyrone, obviously his level did slip at points last season, so I guess that. But if you talk consistency, then maybe someone like Emmy does get a shout. You know what I mean? So it's it's an interesting situation, but one that I think you're right, mate. You don't want to read too much into, because it's not the same as it was.
No, I think I've formed an opinion on it now. I think that he's given McGinn the captaincy in the same way that Dean gave it to Grealish. As you come on, rise to it now, because we know how much he loves. Gerard loves Guinea, but I think it's And, and I literally was talking about 10 minutes ago, mate, talking about players who are rising up and constantly evolving as we are. McGinn's been one of them. And I think it's more of a, like, come on, less of the, because, McGinn's been consistent. He's consistently a 5 out of 10 last season. That's the problem. He's saying, come on, I need you to consistently be at least an 8. So, yeah, but like, and again, like, I think that kind of leads me on to the next thing, mate. How do you expect us to line up at Bournemouth given this whole thing? Because, you can't, like, McGinn's the captain and then all of a sudden he's just not in the squad, like he's not in the starting 11 against Bournemouth. Could you imagine? Like, it's ridiculous. But, because for me, what that says is we're not playing 4-2-3-1, which is, in my opinion, obviously I am no football manager and I'm no expert and I'm not a UEFA qualified coach, but we played our best football this pre-season in a 4-2-3-1, and we have bought players to play in a 4-2-3-1. But we're going to play 4-3-3.
Nah, look, I mean, I know inherently they are quite similar formations, and it's very, very easy to go between the two. And sometimes it's not very easy to tell the difference between the two based on how. So, obviously, a 4-3-3 nowadays, the rule of thumb is a 6 and 2 8/10s, right?
Yeah.
I think City, but obviously that doesn't have to be the case. It can be a 6 and an 8 or a 6 and a 10. Sorry, 2 6s and 8 or 2 6 and a 10, which obviously is basically then a 4-2-3-1. So it's like they're very interchangeable formations, really. I think, yeah, I agree in that. I think if we can get a bank of midfield, I'm not convinced Coutinho can play an 8. I know, people have sort of said it as point that in that 8 content. I don't think he can really. He can. Right, let me rephrase. He can, absolutely he can. Philippe Coutinho can play fucking right back if he wants to play right back. He's a wonderful footballer, but we won't get the best out of him. I think if you put 2 solid midfielders behind him and say, go and roam, take that, pop up where you want to, go, pop up between the lines, thread passes, try your efforts from range, have a ball. That's where you're going to get the best out of him. I think you give him that security if you put Kamara and Louise or Kamara and McGinn behind him. So I want to see that. Look, shout out Diego Carlos for your goal, son. I'm really excited. I have been from pre-season. I don't want to say prove wrong because obviously he's very good signings, but I had my reservations about the signing. He wouldn't have been my first choice to go out and buy just because obviously he has been a little bit haphazard. Is the word I use at Sevilla. But he seems to have come in and he settled in really nicely. Great for him to score the final goal of pre-season as well. So I'm really excited to see him in the side. I think it will be Tyrone Mings that plays alongside him at Bournemouth anyway. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I do sort of feel like a few good games for Cancer and Chambers, and I think with the change in the captaincy, the writing might be on the wall for Tyrone Mings. I hope not, mate, because you and I have both been very staunch defenders of him, but I think he will start against Bournemouth. I want to see that 3 of Bailey, Buendia, Coutinho behind Watkins and Ings. I don't know. I really don't know who you go for there. Honestly, I would go as far as saying right now, I don't have a preference. Ask me 5-6 games into the season. And as I said, hopefully we can start to establish that sort of pecking order.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's impossible. It's impossible to know. I'll put you on the spot there. But guys, let us know in the comment section down below what you think, how Villa should line up. We would love to know. I forgot to get the Gary Shaw. It's not Gary Shaw. Oh my God, Andy Gray episode on Friday. So forgive me. They'll be.
Are you teasing something I don't know about, mate?
Mate, I wish I was. We had so many things in the pipeline, but it's all falling apart. But yeah, Gary Shaw was never one. By the way, I don't know. My mind is numb. But yeah, so there will be the next episode of the Andy Gray series soon. Dan and I hope you're going to do a live stream some point next week. We'll do a proper preview for Bournemouth as well, because man, how's the season back already? How are we, like, tomorrow's August? That's mental. That's ridiculous.
It's crazy, man.
It's not on. It's absolutely not on. I'm not ready for summer to end. But yeah, if you enjoyed, hit a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. Up the Villa.